Hello friends, welcome back to another video of tips and tricks. So today we are gonna see how to automate the inputs given to a command on a UNIX server, and thus you can automate your command execution completely. So the simple example which I'm gonna take to demo this in this video is fdisk. So as you might already be aware that fdisk needs few inputs like N, P and all those inputs according to your need to partition your disk as per your requirement, right? So let's see how do we in general do the fdisk partitioning, right? So if you see here, I have already added a disk on my Ubuntu 02 server as SDB for 200 MB. That's all because I just needed it to show as demo. So we will be partitioning dev SDB and see how the regular partitioning works, right? So what we do in general is fdisk dev sdb and then we use p to print if there is any partition on the disk or not, and then we create a new partition and we choose primary or extended. In general I choose extended, and then we give it by default as one, and then we leave it as it is, whatever it is, and then we again hit enter to create a partition, and then we can see the partition is created, right? And then after the extended partition we need to create a logical partition to use it, right? So we create a new partition and it by default takes the partition number as 5 and it asks for the sector, so we give default and then we give default. And then generally what I do is change the type of the partition. So this is the command T to change the type, and it is asking for the partition number. So we'll leave the default, or we can give 5, right? So I can give 5, and then I'm going to give the code for LVM, which is AT, right? So now it is partitioned as LVM partition, right? And if we want to just see it, we have created STB1 and STB5 here, and then we can write it. So the partition table is written. So this is how you generally do the partitioning, right, for a server. So you give all these inputs like N and E and L and then the number and the size and everything, right? And at last you write it. So this can be automated, and how can this be done? That is what we are gonna see. New commands like parted, gparted have the easier way to do them, and you can simply allocate 100% of your disk space to a partition and create a partition in one line command. But lot of users, lot of admins still prefer to use fdisk. So that is why I am showing you this fdisk option, and that is the common command is still in use. So how you can automate this with the fdisk, let's see that. Okay, so let me remove this partition again and show how we will be doing all that with the script. So by default it is taking 5. Let's hit enter. Partition 5 is deleted, and now it will be just having the first partition. So let's delete that one too. And partition 1 is also deleted, and there is nothing. Let's write it and let's re-ensure that everything is deleted here. Okay, so nothing is there on the dev STB. Now let's create the same partition what we did just now manually through a script. So what we need to do, we need to create a script here, and I'll name it as partition script.sh. Okay, so just an example. So what we need to type in here, we need to type in the command we ran. So we ran the command dev sdb with fdisk, right? So that is the disk we want to partition it, right? Now we have to give a redirection option and give a variable which we name as EOF. Let me use the disk name itself. So end of file STB. That's what I'm choosing here. So the first option which we ran in the fdisk command. So I'll exclude the print options here because we want to simply create the partition, right? So what we can do, we can just add the commands which are needed to create the partition. So we'll use N, so that is for new partition. And then what we did extended partition, so we'll choose E, right? And then it was by default 1, that means the partition number, so we'll choose 1. And then if you remember, for the size we hit enter twice. So once, twice, two times enter, and then this will create the extended partition. Now we want to create the logical partition over the extended partition. So what did we hit? We hit N again, and then it by default created a logical partition, and we hit enter twice for the space, right, to take the default space. If you want to see, I can show you here. So where did we create that? So here it is, right? So after SDB1 we hit N, and by default it took the partition number, and we hit enter twice, right? So that's what we did. So we created the SDB5 partition so far. After that, what did we do? We did T to change the type of the file system, and then we gave the partition number, which would be 5, and then we gave the file system type we want to change to. So we gave 8E, and after that, at last, we gave W to write all that partition table, right? And then this variable EOFSDB, this has to come here. So what it is exactly going to do? It is going to run the fdisk-dev-sdb command and pass those inputs to that command one by one and create the partition. So you don't have to enter them manually. So let's see if it works. Now, because this is a script, let's change the permission to executable for this script. So it is done now. Now we can execute it. Again, this is something which we have to run as root because we are directly using fdisk command, not the sudo, and we want to input all those parameters to the fdisk command. Okay, so let me run this, and we should be able to create the same partitions what we created manually. Okay, so see, it gave you some output on the command line that it did something. Now let's try to run the fdisk-l command with devsdb. And if you see here, it did create the partition sdb1 as extended, and it did create the partition sdb5 as AT, that is Linux LVM. So just one script execution, you are done with your partitioning. This is just an example which I have taken because I have been using it for quite some time, and this has been useful to me. But you can very well use this concept of giving inputs to your commands through a script, through a file on any of your commands where you need to input a parameter to the command, right? So that was all I wanted to share in this video. It was short and sweet. Hope you would have liked it. Thank you for watching.